The 9/11 terror attacks. We're now joined live from London by journalist Sukant Chandan. Thanks very much for joining us. Now, of course, the UK stood side by side with the US in the war on terror from the outset. And 10 years after the attacks, have the British people changed their opinion about why the war is being fought in the first place?
I'm not sure if British public opinion has really changed its understanding of what the so-called war on terror is about, but I think they would do well to look at what's happening in Tripoli in Libya today. Whereas we'd be told that Al-Qaeda is the existentialist threat to the West, we have now NATO's main rebel commander in Tripoli, who was a former friend of Al-Qaeda and a so-called jihadi. So this is really the big news story of today, which hardly any of the news networks are covering. And also today in Libya, after nearly 10 years after 9/11, we saw defeat after defeat, actually, for the West after 9/11, definitely with the resistance in Iraq, which bogged down the empire so the rest of the global South could develop, especially Latin America and China, with the defeat by Russia of NATO in the conflict with Georgia, and by Hezbollah against Israel in 2006. We're finding now that empire wants to go back on the offensive in its war against the global South, which is Libya today, and probably going to be Syria and Algeria and South Africa and others to follow.
You were talking about perception, and you bring up Libya. I mean, the UK recently joined the US in intervening in Libya. Is there a feeling that this particular campaign is justified, comparing that with the perception on the war on terror 10 years ago?
I think there's truth in what you're implying, in as much as that they've more or less successfully sold this NATO war and aggression on Libya to the Western public and to much of the Arab public. But nevertheless, no lessons have obviously been learned by the West, because what they've done in Libya, Gaddafi has more of a social support in Libya than the Taliban do in Afghanistan. Unlike Afghanistan, Libya is just neighboring Europe. So with the resistance that is raging in Ben Walid, in Sirte, in Tawarga, in Sabah, etc., in Libya, I think Europe needs to watch its back.
Okay, since the terror attacks in Europe, I mean, it has still continued even after the war on terror was launched. I mean, has Europe actually won anything from this, from taking part in this global war on terror, of course, that the US had led?
No, it has won nothing. It's seen defeat. And the West is not stupid. I mean, perhaps the rest of the global South are not intelligent enough to defend itself, therefore the West are more intelligent. But they knew that the way that they had to sell a war had to be different to the whole axis of evil thing, which was about
not even, for
China.
example, having killed Osama bin Laden. You don't see that as anything gained?
No, I think if it was a gain, it would be trying to develop a relationship of mutual respect and friendship with the rest of the world. But what we're seeing now with Libya and Syria and other countries to follow is that they're progressing on this war path by slightly different media and propagandistic means.
Okay, well, let's talk about the invasion of Iraq, just continuing on that. It was never sanctioned by the UN. I mean, it turned out that there were no weapons of mass destruction, essentially staged under false pretext. Is there a sense that someone should bear responsibility for the war, I mean, that cost thousands of lives here?
Absolutely. The onus is on the global South to hold empire and the West accountable. The attack on Iraq, like the attack on Libya, is an attack on the forward positions of the global South. So the responsibility is on the global South to defend itself, and in so doing, and I'm a loyal friend of the global South, we failed in that. Chavez is the best brother of Gaddafi. Chavez should have cut off the oil to North America like Russia did to Europe. So I think there is weakness in the global South that we need to strengthen.
Okay, just very briefly, quickly, lessons learned. Lessons learned over the last 10 years on this war on terror. What should the world have learned from it?
The world has to learn that the West will never give up its domination of the globe without devastating and taking the rest of the world to war. So in as much so doing, the main lesson for us to learn is how do we develop our effective internationalism against aggression of the West. And we have to, the global South has to make the West pay and hit them where it hurts. And that doesn't mean any violence. It means stop the oil that Russia did to Europe. So I think this is the main lesson to be learned.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your thoughts there. Live from London, journalist Sukant Chandan. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. For